The Frankfurt deal was finally closed. 6 grueling days of negotiations, and I'd secured the European expansion my boss had been chasing for 2 years. My body ached from the 9-hour flight, but triumph pulsed through me as I steered my rental car toward my parents' suburban home. My suitcase waited in the trunk. I'd promised Mom I'd stop by before heading to my apartment, knowing she'd want to hear about my trip and probably force-feed me something homemade. The setting sun painted the familiar neighborhood in amber hues as I turned onto Maple Street. I pulled into the driveway, noticing Dad had finally trimmed the overgrown bushes flanking the garage. Little victories. My black pumps pinched as I stepped out, smoothing my charcoal pencil skirt. The flight had wrinkled my silk blouse, but I still looked every inch the senior financial analyst who'd just landed a career-making deal. I smiled, fishing the garage remote from my purse. I'd stored my Challenger here while traveling, safer than street parking at my apartment complex. The familiar click as I pressed the button, the mechanical whir as the door lifted. Then nothing but empty space where my car should be. No, no, no. The words tumbled out as my stomach plummeted. The garage stretched before me, barren except for Dad's lawnmower and Mom's gardening supplies. My fingers went numb. The remote clattered to the concrete as I dropped my suitcase and rushed toward the house. This couldn't be happening. Not my car. Not my Challenger. I burst through the side door into the kitchen. They were waiting for me, Mom, Dad, and my sister Kendra seated around the oak table like they were staging an intervention. The silence hit me first, then the guilt radiating from each of them. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. He stared at his calloused hands spread flat on the table. Avery, honey. Mom's voice carried that sugary tone she used when breaking bad news. Don't overreact. Where's my car? The words scraped my throat. Kendra straightened her shoulders. Confidence plastered on her face like one of her makeup tutorials. It's just temporary, Avie. I'll pay it all back. Pay what back? My voice dropped dangerously low. Where is my Challenger? Mom glanced at Dad, who still wouldn't look up. We had to make a tough decision, sweetie. Kendra needed startup capital for her business, and we took it to Cornerstone Pond. Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. Got $45,000 for it. The room tilted sideways. You did what with my car? It's a loan against the car, not a sale. Kendra jumped in. Once my cosmetics line launches, I'll pay it back with interest. You'll have your car back in no time. My mind flashed to the endless nights I'd spent hunched over spreadsheets at Bridgewater Capital. 70-hour weeks for 6 years straight. Saying no to vacations, to a better apartment, to everything while I saved. I remembered Grandpa's weathered hands guiding mine over the engine of his friend's Challenger when I was 9. These machines aren't just transportation, Avery girl. They're dreams made solid. His eyes had crinkled with absolute certainty. Someday you'll have your own beauty. Just be patient. The day I'd finally driven my Challenger home, tears had streamed down my face. Not just for the glossy black paint or the rumble of the engine, but for what it represented. Proof that my sacrifices meant something. My cosmetics startup is revolutionary, Kendra was saying, flipping her hair over her shoulder. I've developed a formula that, I don't care if you've discovered the fountain of youth in a bottle. My voice cut through her pitch. That car wasn't yours to take. Mom's lips thinned. Now, Avery, family helps family. You make plenty of money at your job. Kendra needs this chance to succeed. So you used my spare key and my title? The betrayal burrowed deeper with each realization. You committed fraud. Dad flinched. We're your parents, Mom countered. We've always supported both our girls equally. A bitter laugh escaped me. Equally? That's what you call this? My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out automatically, glancing at the notification. My insurance company alerting me to a lien placed against my vehicle. Ice replaced the fire in my veins. This wasn't just about money. This wasn't even just about my dream car. This was about respect, something my family had never given me. You have 30 days, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. 30 days to get my car back, or I'm pressing charges for fraud and theft. Charges? Mom gasped. Against your own family. Family doesn't steal from each other. I turned toward the door. 30 days. Their shocked expressions followed me as I walked out, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the family photos on the wall. Photos that suddenly seemed like fiction, smiling faces, hiding the truth that in this family, my dreams had always been considered disposable. The pawn shop reeks of desperation and cheap air freshener. I straighten my blazer, trying to look like a woman who belongs here rather than one whose world is collapsing. My reflection in a dusty display case shows mascara tracks I missed washing away this morning. Miss Martin, the pawnbroker Gordon, according to his name tag, slides paperwork across the counter. His voice carries the practiced neutrality of someone who witnesses financial catastrophes daily. Your vehicle was brought in 5 days ago, loan amount $45,000, plus our standard fees. I scan the documents, my finance training kicking in automatically. $3,000 in fees, that's practically predatory. 5. Gordon's face remains impassive. Classic car market's volatile. We take risks, and if the loan isn't repaid, after 35 days, we auction the vehicle. He taps a paragraph of fine print. Full payment required by October 3rd. $48,000 total. My stomach twists as I flip to the next page. There it is, my signature. Except it isn't mine. The forgery is close enough to fool the pawn shop, but misses the slight upward curve I always make on the final N. This isn't my signature. Gordon's expression shifts slightly. Ma'am, if you're suggesting fraud, I'm not suggesting, I'm stating. I pull out my driver's license, then a recent work contract. Compare them. He studies the signatures. Discomfort growing visible. I'll need to speak with my manager about this. Please do. And while you're at it, pull the security footage from when this transaction happened. My voice sounds calmer than I feel. I was in Frankfurt, Germany. 20 minutes and one manager later, the reality settles like concrete in my chest. My parents committed actual fraud, criminal fraud, the kind people go jail for. We can file a police report right now, the manager offers. The word police makes my throat close. I need time to think. Back in my apartment, I sink onto the couch, still wearing my coat. On the coffee table sits a family photo album I haven't opened in years. I pull it onto my lap, fingers trembling slightly as I flip through plastic-covered memories. There's Kendra's sweet 16, a garden party with 40 guests, a professional photographer, and a cake taller than she was. I turn the page to find nothing from my 16th birthday because I'd been working a part-time job at the mall, saving for college application fees. I flip forward. Kendra's high school graduation, where Dad rented a limousine. My college graduation ceremony, empty chairs where my parents should have been. Their flight mysteriously canceled despite clear weather. They'd made it to Kendra's dance recital the very next day. Christmas 2018 stares back at me. Kendra standing beside a red Volkswagen with an enormous bow, while I clutch a department store sweater to my chest, smiling that tight smile that doesn't reach my eyes. The pattern stretches across years, across milestones, across dreams, not just subtle favoritism, but consistent sacrifices. My sacrifices to elevate Kendra. My phone rings, startling me. Uncle Harvey's name lights up the screen. I just heard, he says, skipping hello. Your mother called, trying to spin it their way. And what way is that? I ask, suddenly exhausted. At your overreacting. That family helps family. His disgusted snort carries through the phone. This isn't right, and you know it. I do know it. Tears threaten again. I just didn't think they'd go this far. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. After we hang up, Aunt Patricia calls Dad's sister, always the peacemaker. They were just trying to help Kendra succeed. She pleads. Gerald feels terrible. Can't you find some compassion? The doorbell saves me from answering. It's Jessica from work, holding a bag from our favorite Thai place. I brought dinner, she says, taking in my red-rimmed eyes. You look like hell. I laugh for the first time in days. Thanks for the honesty. Over spicy noodles, I tell her everything. Her outrage feels like a balm. Someone finally seeing the situation clearly. You know this is criminal, right? She asks, refilling my wine glass. They stole your car. I know. If anyone else did this. But it wasn't anyone else. I set down my fork. It was my family. That makes it worse, not better. Jessica's voice softens. What does your boss say? That family can cut deeper than anyone. I'd broken down in his office earlier. Something I'd never done in 6 years at Bridgewater. He's giving me space to handle it. The next morning I text Kendra. Coffee, noon. The place near your apartment. Just us. She's already there when I arrive, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. Her bouncy confidence from the kitchen confrontation has evaporated. Let me see the business plan, I say, sitting down. What? The business plan. Financial projections. Marketing strategy. You know, the documents any legitimate startup would have before seeking investment. She fidgets with her coffee cup. It's more fluid than that. Creative businesses. Stop. I hold up my hand. Show me what you have. Actual documents. What she pulls from her bag is a mood board of makeup looks, a list of potential product names, and crude sketches of packaging. No supplier contracts. No formulation specifics. No financial modeling. This is it. My voice drops dangerously low. This is what you stole my car for. Plays now. I just needed a chance to prove myself like you did. Her lower lip trembles. Everyone always talks about how successful you are, how responsible, how I should be more like you. I earned my chance, I say, each word deliberate. I didn't steal someone else's dream. Her shoulders slump. I thought once the business took off, I could pay you back with interest, make everyone proud. And now, the first shipment arrived yesterday. She removes her sunglasses, revealing puffy eyes. Half the containers were cracked. Customers are already complaining online. The formula separates after a few hours. Her voice cracks. Everything's falling apart. My phone buzzes with a text from Kendra. I look up at her, confused, then back at my phone. I need more money to fix this. Just a little more. Please, Avery, I'm desperate. She's watching me read it, her expression pleading. I set my phone face down on the table. Not a penny more, I say. You fix this or we all lose. Her face crumples. I don't know how. For one dangerous moment, I feel the old pull the family expectation that I'll clean up the mess, fix the problem, be the responsible one. Then I remember my empty garage and the forged signature. You better figure it out fast, I say, standing up. The clock is ticking. 10 days after the garage revelation. Kendra's business lies in ruins. I track her failure while trying to focus on my own career, watching each disastrous update ping my phone like clockwork. Day 3, suppliers refusing further shipments after bounced payments. Day 5, refund demands flooding her social media. Day 7, business account frozen by the bank. Day 10, Kendra barricaded in her apartment, ignoring everyone's calls. I stare at my computer screen in my office at Bridgewater Capital, the Frankfurt acquisition documents blurring before my eyes. The deal I'd spent 6 months orchestrating now hangs by a thread because I can't focus. My mind keeps circling back to the empty space in the garage where my challenger should be. My desk phone rings. It's my boss, Director Palmer. Avery, I need those final projections by 4. His voice carries that edge of concern that's been growing over the past week. You look exhausted. Everything okay at home? I force a professional smile into my voice. Everything's fine. You'll have those projections within the hour. The lie tastes bitter. Nothing is fine. My family betrayed me. My sister's business is imploding, and my career might follow if I can't compartmentalize better. When Sunday arrives, I park my rental at the curb outside my parents' house instead of in the driveway. A small rebellion, but it feels necessary. The familiar smell of pot roast mom's peace offering wafts from the kitchen as I enter. Dad sits at the table, shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. Mom fusses with the china plates, the good ones reserved for Christmas and crises. Kendra arrives late, her designer sunglasses hiding puffy eyes, her confident stride replaced by something slower, smaller. Let's eat while it's hot, Mom says, serving Dad first as she always has. We sit in silence, broken only by the scrape of forks against plates. I cut my meat into precise squares, focusing on the pressure of knife against ceramic to keep from screaming. Mom breaks first. Kendra's having a difficult time with her business. She pats Kendra's hand. Everyone fails sometimes. I set down my fork. This isn't about failure. It's about theft. We thought we were helping, Dad says quietly, the first words he's spoken since I arrived. His weathered hands tremble slightly as he reaches for his water glass. We wanted Kendra to have her chance. At my expense, the words come out sharper than intended, slicing through the pretense. You didn't just take a car. You took everything it represented. Kendra flinches. Honey, it's just a vehicle. Mom begins. It was 6 years of overtime and missed vacations. It was Grandpa's legacy. It was the one thing I had that proved all my sacrifices meant something. My voice remains steady while something wild and wounded thrashes inside my chest. And you took it without a second thought. The doorbell rings. Relief floods Mom's face at the interruption until Dad returns with Uncle Harvey behind him. My father's older brother fills the doorway with his broad shoulders and trademark scowl. What the hell were you thinking, Gerald? Harvey demands without preamble. His eyes find mine across the room. Avery called me. Mom's spine stiffens. This is a family matter, Harvey. Exactly why I'm here. He pulls out the chair beside me. Someone needs to speak for the member of this family you're throwing under the bus. Dad's face reddens. Now wait just a minute. No, you wait. I reach for my briefcase beside the chair. The leather feels cool against my fingertips as I extract the folder I prepared yesterday. We need to talk about what happens next. I place 3 printouts on the table. Vehicle title, fraud statutes, pawnshop regulations, and sentencing guidelines. The papers land with the weight of grenades. This is a felony. I tap the first document. I could send you both to jail. Anyway, Mom's face drains of color. You wouldn't. I don't want to. The truth of this surprises me. Despite everything, I don't want to destroy them. But you need to understand what you've done. Dad stares at the papers, really seeing them. Prison time. 2 to 5 years for title fraud. I keep my voice clinical detached, plus restitution. Mom collapses into tears. Not the manipulative kind she uses to end arguments, but ragged, ugly sobs that shake her shoulders. Dad reaches for her hand, his own eyes glistening. What have we done to you? To us. For the first time since this nightmare began, I see genuine remorse in his face. Not just regret for getting caught, but true understanding of the damage inflicted. Kendra pulls off her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. This is my fault. Her voice cracks. I pushed them to do it. I knew you'd never agree. So I convinced them it was temporary, that you'd understand once my business took off. She looks down at her manicured hands. I never thought it would fall apart so fast. Uncle Harvey leans forward. So what's the plan? Because that pawn shop won't wait forever. 25 days, I confirm. Then they auction the car. Mom dabs at her eyes. What can we do? I pull out a calculator. We need to figure out what resources we have. For the next hour, we assess our options. Dad thinks I can get a home equity line of credit for $30,000, but it will take 2 weeks to process. Kendra agrees to sell her BHM/HW and empty her savings account, which might yield another $12,000. I reluctantly commit $6,000 from my emergency fund. Uncle Harvey watches this accounting with narrowed eyes. I can loan you $5,000, he finally says, but only because Avery shouldn't have to pay for this mess. The math is brutal. Even pooling everything, we're looking at 15 days before we can gather the full amount. and the pawn shop requires an immediate deposit of $15,000 to halt the auction process. I'll call tomorrow morning, Dad says, his voice steadier now. See if they'll work with us on the timeline. When I leave, the weight on my chest hasn't lifted, but something has shifted. The betrayal remains, but now there's a path forward, difficult, uncertain, but visible. Back in my apartment, I sit on the edge of my bed, a framed photo in my hands. My grandfather stands beside a gleaming black Challenger, his arm around 12-year-old me. The summer light catches on the chrome bumper and in his smiling eyes. Cars are just metal and chrome, Avery girl, he told me once. It's what they represent that matters. In the stillness of my apartment, I finally understand what he meant. This fight isn't just about getting my car back. It's about demanding the respect I've earned. It's about teaching my family that my dreams matter as much as Kendra's. I pick up my phone and dial my parents' number. Dad answers on the first ring. I'll help, I tell him, my voice steady, but things will never be the same. The silence stretches between us, filled with everything we can't undo. I know, he finally says. We'll make this right, Avery. I promise. I end the call without saying goodbye. Some promises come too late to be comforting, but I'll take action over words any day. Tomorrow, we start the fight to reclaim what's mine, not just a car, but my place in this family. Kendra stares at her reflection in the boutique's mirrored wall, fingering the delicate silk of her favorite Hermes scarf. Her collection, once her pride, now laid across the counter for appraisal. The shop owner studies each piece through narrow glasses, her lips pursed in calculation. I can offer $8,000 for the lot, she says, not looking up. Kendra swallows hard. These pieces cost her over $15,000, but the pawnshop's deadline looms larger than her pride. Done, she whispers, watching as the woman writes the check. Across town, Dad shuffles into the warehouse manager's office, arthritis flaring in his knees. Night shift. The manager raises his eyebrows. Gerald, you haven't worked nights in 20 years. Dad sinks into the chair across from him. Just temporarily. Need the differential pay. The manager studies the shadows under Dad's eyes. This about that car situation your brother mentioned. Dad nods once, jaw tight. Family business. Starting Monday, then, he slides the paperwork across. Hope it's worth it. At home, Mom wraps Grandma's silver candlesticks in tissue paper, hands trembling. These pieces survived the Depression, witnessed 50 years of family celebrations. She places them carefully in a box with the pearl necklace Dad gave her on their 25th anniversary. The pawnbroker at Fletcher's barely glances at the items before offering $3,000 to cover next week's interest payment. My own sacrifices come in lost sleep and skipped meals. The Frankfurt expansion demands constant attention, but I'm taking extra accounts, pushing for the performance bonus that suddenly means the difference between redemption and ruin. The deposit receipt from Cornerstone Pawn sits on my desk, proof that our initial $15.00 postponed the auction. A small victory, hollowed by the bank's latest letter, HESLHOC approval delayed pending property assessment. They're making actual progress, Jessica says over takeout in my cubicle. Your sister called me. I look up from spreadsheets, surprised. She called you? Wanted to know if the financial group was hiring for entry-level positions. Jessica twirls noodles around her fork. I was shocked. Later that week, I spot Kendra across the food court, barely recognizable in simple black slacks and a white button-down. No designer labels, no statement jewelry. She shifts her weight nervously outside Nordstrom's employee entrance. Her first day. When my phone rings that night, her voice sounds smaller than I've ever heard it. I had no idea of her words catch 8 hours on my feet, smiling at people who treat me like furniture, and you've been working 70-hour weeks for years. I lean against my kitchen counter, unsure what to say. All those times I called you boring for canceling plans, she continues. You weren't being boring. You were being responsible. 3 days later, we meet at the coffee shop halfway between our apartments. Kendra orders plain coffee instead of her usual complicated concoction. Her makeup is subtle, her nails short and unpolished. I was entitled and selfish, she says without preamble. I'm so sorry, Avery. Not just for the car, for everything. I wrap my hands around my mug, feeling the warmth seep into my palms. Pretty words, Ken. I know. She nods. I steady. Actions speak louder. I'm trying to show you now. At my parents' house, Dad spreads bank statements across the kitchen table, the harsh overhead light emphasizing every line on his face. He squints at figures that refuse to balance, adding columns for the fifth time. Gerald. Mom calls from the study. Did you know about these? She holds a stack of loan applications, all in Kendra's flowing script. Credit cards, personal loans, 3 different buy now pay later accounts. Nearly $80,000, Mom whispers. We had no idea. The next morning, they sit across from Mr. Winters at the credit union, the financial advisor they've trusted for 20 years. This HEHLHOSC will delay your retirement by at least 5 years, he explains gently. And that's assuming no other financial surprises. Mom stares at her hands, wedding ring loose on her thinner finger. When I stop by to drop off my portion of this week's payment, Dad meets me on the porch steps. For once, Mom isn't hovering nearby with excuses. We failed you, he says, voice rough with emotion, long before we took your car. I sit beside him, the weathered wood creaking beneath us. All those years, we praised Kendra's dreams while dismissing yours. His calloused hands twist together. You never asked for much, so we never thought you needed much. The Sunday evening sky turns golden as we sit in silence. Then the HEHLHOSC finally comes through, but with a 3-day processing period. Relief turns to panic when Cornerstone Pawn calls. Another buyer is interested in the Challenger, offering cash. We just need 2 more days. Dad pleads over the phone. Business is business, the pawnbroker replies. First money here gets the car. The next 36 hours blur into frantic calculations and desperate phone calls. Kendra empties her savings account. Mom sells her anniversary diamond earrings. I max out my emergency credit line. Still $3,000 short. It's not enough, Mom says, voice hollow as we gather around the kitchen table. The deadline is tomorrow at noon. The doorbell rings, and Uncle Harvey stands on the porch, checkbook in hand. Family helps family, he says, echoing Mom's words from weeks ago, but with entirely different meaning. The next morning, we all crowd into the bank, watching the digital clock tick toward noon as the manager processes the wire transfer. Dad's hand trembles as he signs the authorization. At 11:42, the confirmation appears on the screen. Payment received. For the first time in weeks, we breathe. The early morning sun catches on the chrome trim of my Challenger as I stand in front of Cornerstone Pawn, gripping the receipt in my sweaty palm. After 30 days of family sacrifices, arguments, and enough tears to fill the Colorado River, we've scraped together the $48,000, every penny accounted for. My throat tightens as I push through the glass door. The same pawnbroker who took my car sits behind the counter, eyebrows lifting in recognition. Miss Martin, he says, sliding paperwork across the counter. Here for your vehicle. I nod, unable to trust my voice. My signature feels foreign as I scrawl it across each line, the pen trembling between my fingers. The broker counts the cashier's check twice before sliding over a folder containing my title and a set of keys. All square, he says, but I barely hear him. My hands shake so badly I nearly drop the keys. Cold metal against my palm, the familiar weight I'd thought I might never feel again. Standing in the lot, I trace my fingers along the glossy black paint, feeling for imperfections, for evidence of mistreatment. The chrome trim catches sunlight, sending it back in blinding flashes. They detailed it yesterday, the broker mentions from behind me. Policy before return. I don't answer. This moment should feel triumphant. Instead, it tastes like ash victory hollowed out by betrayal. Grandpa's voice echoes in my memory. Cars are just metal and chrome. It's what they represent that matters. What does this car represent now? Not just my hard work and sacrifice, but the knowledge that my family saw my dream as disposable. The engine rumbles to life with a familiar growl that vibrates through the seat. Tears stream unchecked down my face as I pull away from the pawn shop, each mile between us allowing another fragment of emotion to break loose. By the time I reach my apartment, my cheeks are soaked, mascara probably tracking dark rivers down my face. But my car is home. 3 days later, my phone buzzes with a text from Mom. Sunday dinner, 5 p.m. Your father's grilling steaks, quididante. The invitation lands like a stone in my stomach. I consider declining, but type back a simple, I'll be there instead. Some conversations can't happen over text. Sunday arrives with perfect spring weather. The Challenger's engine announces my arrival before I even turn into their driveway. Dad stands by the grill, spatula frozen mid-flip as I park. Mom appears in the doorway, worrying a dish towel between her hands. Dinner is an exercise in awkward silence, punctuated by requests to pass the potatoes or comment on the weather. Kendra picks at her food, eyes downcast. Nobody mentions the elephant sitting at the table with us. Finally, Dad clears his throat, setting down his fork with deliberate care. Avery. He begins, voice formal as a stranger's. I've prepared some things I'd like to say. He pulls a folded paper from his pocket, hands visibly trembling. I betrayed your trust. I violated your property rights. I failed in my duty as your father to protect what matters to you. Each sentence sounds rehearsed but sincere, his eyes darting between the paper and my face. Mom reaches across the table, tears spilling. Please forgive us, sweetheart. We were wrong. So terribly wrong. Kendra straightens in her chair. I've been working at Macy's for 3 weeks now. She says, pulling out a small notebook. I've created a budget plan to pay back my portion. It'll take time, but every penny will be returned. They watch me, 3 faces tight with hope and fear. Healing takes time, I say finally, setting my napkin beside my plate. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. The relief in the room is palpable, though no one smiles. They understand this isn't forgiveness, just the willingness to try. 2 days later, I sit across from Rachel Hallman, the lawyer whose card has been burning a hole in my wallet for a month. You have a solid case for criminal charges, she says, glasses perched on her nose as she reviews the documentation. Title fraud. Identity theft. Your parents could face serious consequences. I stare at the family photo on her desk, 3 generations, smiling in matching sweaters. What are my other options? Rachel leans back. A formal repayment agreement, legally binding, but without criminal charges. The next Sunday, we gather around the dining room table again. Uncle Harvey sits beside me, his weathered hands steady as he watches my parents and Kendra sign the contracts. Monthly payments for 2 years. I explain, voice steadier than I feel. With interest. Dad's hand shakes as he signs, but his eyes meet mine without flinching. We'll honor this, Avery, every term. The power shift is unmistakable. For the first time in my life, my boundaries aren't just words to be dismissed. They're in black and white, legally binding. I never wanted this kind of authority over you. I admit later, as Harvey walks me to my car. Sometimes respect has to be enforced before it can be freely given, he replies, squeezing my shoulder. The extended family reunion the following month becomes the stage for public reckoning. Aunt Patricia corners me by the potato salad, wine glass tilting dangerously. Everyone makes mistakes, dear. You've made your point. Time to let it go. Uncle Harvey materializes beside us, steady as an oak. They need to own what they did, Patricia. No minimizing. The backyard falls silent as Kendra steps forward, shoulders squared despite her trembling voice. I manipulated my parents, she announces to the gathered family. I played on their favoritism, but they chose to betray Avery. We're all accountable. Aunt Patricia's mouth opens and closes like a fish. Cousin Mike gives me a solemn nod of respect. Something shifts in the family dynamic truth, cutting through decades of enabling patterns. Later that week, I changed the garage door code at my parents' house. The symbolism isn't lost on any of us as I install a security system on the Challenger, the small black box blinking beneath the dashboard. "Will you leave a spare key with us?" Mom asks as I prepare to leave, just in case of emergency. I meet her eyes, holding her gaze until understanding dawns. "No," I say simply, "I won't." She nods, lips pressed together but accepting. The message requires no further explanation. Some boundaries need no words, just the clear, unmistakable sound of a line being drawn. The mountain curves ahead unfold like a beckoning hand. I downshift, feeling the Challenger respond with a rumble that vibrates through the steering wheel and into my bones. The Colorado Rockies rise around me, painted in morning gold. 1 year since I nearly lost her, and driving still feels like coming home. "You were right, Grandpa," I whisper, patting the dashboard. The black paint gleams in the sunlight, every reflection a reminder of what I fought for. The windows down, mountain air rushing through my hair, I can finally enjoy this dream without the shadow of betrayal. My shoulders no longer hitch toward my ears in constant tension. The knot that lived between my shoulder blades for months has finally dissolved. Last week's dinner at my parents' house plays in my mind. Dad led me to the garage before I left, unveiling the small addition he'd built himself, a secure, locked space with its own separate alarm system. "Your car's always safe here now," he'd said, voice gruff with emotion he still struggles to express. "Only you have the code." Mom has learned to ask now, simple things like, "Would you mind if I borrow your jacket?" The questions themselves are small victories, acknowledgments that my belongings aren't community property. Kendra sends me $300 each month, not much against what she owes. But the consistency matters more than the amount. Her apartment is tiny, her wardrobe simple. Last month, she showed me her new budget spreadsheet, pride replacing the desperate need for approval that once drove her. "I'm learning what you knew all along," she'd admitted. "Earning something feels different than being handed it." A sharp curve approaches and I ease off the gas, then accelerate through the turn. The engine sings beneath me. Uncle Harvey rode with me last weekend, his weathered hand patting the dashboard appreciatively. "Your grandfather would be proud," he'd said, "not just of the car, but of the woman you've become." I signal and pull into the mountain overlook. Below, the valley stretches into forever, trees spilling toward distant peaks. I kill the engine and sit in the quiet, remembering the day I placed fresh flowers at Grandpa's grave, propping a framed photo of me with the Challenger against his headstone. I understand now, I'd told him, some dreams cost more than money. The finance class I volunteer with meets tomorrow, 20 young women learning what no one taught me: how to protect what matters, how to establish boundaries, how to recognize when giving becomes harmful. Last month, a teenager named Melissa lingered after class, admiring the Challenger. "My dad used to work on old cars," she'd said. "Before the divorce, my mom sold his tools to pay for my sister's dance lessons." I'd let her sit behind the wheel, watching her eyes light up with possibility. "Dreams need protecting," I told her, echoing Grandpa's wisdom, but with new understanding. "And so do you." The sun warms my face as I start the engine again. The road curves ahead, possibilities unmarked by guilt or obligation. Boundaries have cost me the fantasy of perfect family harmony, but they've given me something better: authentic relationships built on respect rather than expectation. I accelerate back onto the mountain road, windows down, the future unfolding before me like the perfect stretch of open highway. For the first time since I was 9 years old, watching Grandpa's hands on a stranger's car, I'm truly enjoying my dream.